Hey, it's Matty at mixandmastermysong.com. As many of you know, I've switched from Pro Tools to Studio One a couple years ago, and it's been an awesome change. Still don't regret it. I still do miss some things in Pro Tools, but just about every day I'm using Studio One. And if songs do come into Pro Tools, I might either stay in Pro Tools or switch it all to Studio One. But if I always had my choice, it's always Studio One. However, there were a few things that I had to kind of figure out how they worked in Studio One in order to kind of apply the same way I've always worked in Pro Tools, if you will. I worked in Pro Tools for like 15 years, so I still wanted to kind of have like a Pro Tools-ish experience in Studio One, if you will. So I thought I'd just show you a couple different things that I did right when I first started using Studio One to make it work a little more like Pro Tools and be kind of familiar the same way. And, you know, it took a while for me to figure these out, so I figured I'm going to make a video and show you so you can do it right when you first start using it. So the first one to do, and this one should be probably pretty much a no-brainer, is just go to your keyboard shortcuts. And if you look over here, Studio One already mapped a lot of the Pro Tools keyboard shortcuts for you. Keyboard mapping scheme, and it will default to Studio One, but you can switch it to Pro Tools. Now, I've modified my keyboard shortcuts a bit more since, so that's why mine says modified. But you can start off with Pro Tools and then kind of change things from there. The next big one that was like hard for me to figure out, but I think since they've made it tab, but it was tab to transient, which is, if you don't know, you could tab to each transient, and it makes it really easy to put your edit mark and then go. And you could even shift tab, which will select the transients as you go, and then you can edit all those. So tab to transient was huge for me. They call it focus next. So I think the new Studio One shortcuts have it as tab now, but when I first started using Studio One, it wasn't. But if yours comes and you hit tab and it doesn't do it, just go to the keyboard shortcuts and just look up focus next, and you can see it's tab or shift tab to go to the previous one. So that's one thing, and that's pretty easy. The next thing was importing audio files is a little different. It's awesome because you can just drag the files in here, which you can in Pro Tools, but I don't think Pro Tools always saves the correct way when you drag them in. It keeps them where they were. I always like to make sure all my audio files are going into that session's audio files folder. So when you drag into Studio One, it will stay where the files are. So say your session is on your audio drive, but your audio files are in your download folder. They're going to stay in the download folder and not go in the media folder that's in your studio that corresponds with your Studio One session. So that's huge to me, because if I delete everything in the download folder, all my audio files for this song are gone. So I do just drag every session file in. Just drag it right. Just go right to, let me see if I got an audio file here. Vocal 2, drag it right in and bring it to the beginning, and there it is. And then when I hit save, you'll notice this dialog comes up. Do you want to copy the external files to the media folder? Now, if you don't select this one button, it won't ever come up. And so let me show you where that is. If you go to appearance, let's see, external location, right? Ask to copy external files when saving song. That is usually unchecked when you first open Studio One. So you want to go in and make sure you get a location, user data, ask to copy to external files when saving song. That way you don't have to think about it. As soon as you hit save for the first time, once you've loaded sessions, and it will ask you, just hit yes, and it will just copy them all in. So that was huge. And it took me a few sessions to figure out that my audio files were going all over the place in the computer. Let's see. The next one is locate when. Yes. Locating empty space. So I found in Studio One that whenever I clicked, the transport would go there, right? But it had this thing that if you were in empty space, it wouldn't. So that's another thing. You need a mark to make it work. So, and again, you go to preferences, and that one is in advanced, and you go to one of these right here, locate when clicked in empty space. So if we turn that off, right, hit apply, see the transport doesn't go to the empty space, and that was driving me crazy when I first started using this. So after digging around for a while, I figured out that in advanced, and there's some other great features here, locate when clicked in empty space, apply, boom. Now whenever I'm in empty space, the locator goes there as well. So that game changing for me. I was like, thank God, because I was about to switch back to Pro Tools because that was driving me crazy. The last thing I'm going to show you, and this is another part of Studio One that's really cool, is their whole macros section. One thing I liked about Pro Tools is when I had a file, the trim gain, I could option and go arrow up or arrow down to gain the clip file or event file, depending on what program you're using. The other cool thing is you can make the macro, so I can even hit option click here and it will turn it down 1 dB, but it also makes the edit marks and crossfades it. So it does a lot more than just what Pro Tools was doing. So that's been really cool. Now, you do need to assign that. So if you go to this little ghost looking button is all I can call it, and go to edit, macro organizer, there was one that's already in there called increase volume or decrease volume. It defaults, I believe, at -3 if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I added these. I switched it to -1 because -3 or +3 was a little bit much for me. And then once those are in there, you can go to your preferences, your keyboard shortcuts, and then type in decrease volume, and then click there, and then assign the key. And you would just click and go option down, and then apply it. It's not going to change because I already have that as the keyboard shortcut. So that's how you assign keyboard shortcuts, and then you're ready to go. You can go up and down with all your files. So there's a ton of other great stuff in here you can do. Another one I use is disable and hide. So if I have this kick and I don't want it anymore, but I want to keep it in case we might need it later, you can just go action, disable and hide. I used to have it as a shortcut key, but it was conflicting with others, so I don't use it enough, but I have it right here ready to go. And so then that puts it in your side folders and hides it and disables it. So hopefully that helps when you're first getting used to using this program. I know for me it took a while to kind of figure all that stuff out. But yeah, once you get it down, it's great, and the workflow is so good. So let me know if you have any comments or questions below. Please like and subscribe. And if you need your songs mixed and mastered, hit me up at mixandmastermysong.com. Thanks.